Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you're dialing in. Thanks very much again for attending the symposium and this particular track. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our views, MDS Global's views on the MVNO market and where we think there's going to be some important penetrations and some important movements. So I'm going to whiz through these slides as fast as I can, but please, as you think about questions, keep them for the Q&A later on in the session. So I think from my perspective to start with, the market is shifting to the point where, it's no longer, MVNOs are no longer really going to be relying on the standard packages of minutes, SMSs and data. That sort of train has left the station, so to speak. Data is going to become increasingly important in everything we do. We're seeing a market evolve. The market's expanding now into business services. The slide depicts, three of them. Mobile banking, health as a service, live on air. These are just services that are almost mature today. Mobile banking's been around for ages. But if you go to some developing countries, when they get a phone, that's their bank account. So mobile money has become very prevalent in the developing world. That mobile banking, that mobile phone is now their bank account as well. Health as a service we're seeing evolve all the time. The likes of Bupa and Garmin and Apple coming together to produce devices that are monitoring various aspects of our health and through connectivity getting that information back to where it needs to get to so people can deliver informed opinions about your health. And live on air, we're full of YouTubers and sort of live on air news that's coming from individuals with mobile phones. That sort of live streaming service is also becoming increasingly important. And MVNOs have got a real part to play in this because they are going to have the ability to provide flexibility and agility to the markets in which these services are looking to get into. They're finite markets that have value for a limited amount of time, and they need to be capitalized on, closed down, and then moved on to the next one when that ceases to become valuable. And I think MVNOs in this world are going to have to think really hard about the partnerships they're going to want to have to make. Marketing from scratch is going to become prohibitively expensive. Developing channels to market, developing all of the marketing assets that you need to sort of exploit that market. You're going to have to rely on brands that already exist, business curators that already have an established market and perhaps have already built the marketing assets to support it. So a key thing is to understand, what are my business relationships going to be in order for me to be successful? And they're the questions that I'm going to have to answer a lot as I start to develop my own business model for going to market as an MVNO. Ultimately, all of those decisions are going to have an impact on how I need to organize myself or how the MVNO needs to organize themselves. So what we're saying now is that services are being defined by business curators, not networks. Business curators could be individual entrepreneurs, or they could be genuine businesses today that are looking to define a new business model for themselves and their little ecosystem of partners in terms of how they go to market. And they're going to need an MVNO to help enable that. Now, as an MVNO, the opportunity in these new service-based delivery models is that there will be a value gap. And the objective of the MVNO is to try and get that value gap. And let me give you an example. I've got a dog, right? And that dog has got a collar. And on that collar, I've got a little device that's got a SIM card in it. And that provides tracking information back to both my phone and also to some central in the cloud based application, so that it alerts me if my dog wanders out of the garden and goes out of a geofence. It alerts me when they're too far away from me, when I'm out on a dog walk. I can set all the criteria. But the point is, I pay I think it's about £180 a year to have that service. And probably that service uses no more than a half a gigabyte of data. And if today I was told you've got a half a gigabyte data for the year and can I have 180 of your pounds, I'd laugh at them. But it's different now because I'm not buying a half a gig of data. I'm buying safety and peace of mind that my dog is always going to be safe. And that's the value gap. These services are going to have value gaps. And as an MVNO, you're going to need to find out what part of that value gap can I get. Now, on the back end of that, we're going to need much more adaptable and flexible commercial relationships with our MNOs. So we're going to need to have MNO contracts that give us the flexibility and the adaptability to offer that same agility to the business partners that we look to provide the connectivity services to. So I think that's the other angle that as an MVNO, you're going to have to look long and hard at. How can I create flexible and adaptable relationships with my MNO, or maybe even multiple MNOs? Now, we know that those businesses, that those big MNOs are slow, cumbersome vehicles sometimes because they're so very big and they don't really like to deal with small, they like to deal with big. Well, as an MVNO, you're the person that takes big down to small by having your multiple business partnerships. So we've got to think not back to front, we've got to think front to back. Start with the customer, understand the value gap, understand the characteristics of the services that are needed, and work it all the way back to your wholesale agreement with the MNO. Now, we know there's growth. There will always be growth. But where is the growth going to happen over the next 15 years? Well, we almost certainly believe most of that growth is going to come from enterprise and from specialized data services. Simply what I've just been talking about over the last couple of slides. I think more traditional models like the discount models, retail, sort of youth, media, ethnic, we think that they're going to still exist. They're either going to be flat or they're perhaps going to shrink slightly. But the real growth is going to come in these specialized data services and prizes. So the real opportunity is that embedded enterprise. And I think that's certainly where MDS, has its, bread and butter working with the enterprise environment. So, we've talked about service curators needing agile network partners because if at the end of the day, these curators are going to be entrepreneurial in nature. They're possibly going to be coming into the market for the first time, or they're going to be businesses that have got existing products and actually now want to see how they can make that product a sort of a long-term revenue generating service. Here's a good example. There's a Mexican gas bottle supplier. And again, a little bit of entrepreneurship. They spotted in the market the opportunity to provide gas to customers as if it were provided through pipeline. These customers were remote. They would have to buy great big bottles of gas that would get delivered. They'd use it, it'd run out, they'd have to order another one. Well, this gas bottle company had devices with SIM cards in them that measured how much gas was left in the bottle. And without the customer even knowing, they would monitor the level of that gas. They would replace the gas bottle when it needed to be replaced, and they would only charge the customer on usage. So again, just here's a product company. I sell gas bottles, becoming a service company into now I provide effectively pipeline gas on a usage basis. And this is where innovation in the MVNO player is going to become really important to capture that value gap, because either these people are entering for the first time, so they need knowledge, and that's what you provide to them, or they're going to need a hell of a lot more services to wrap around that product, whether it be personalization services, whether it be security services. Again, go back to my dog example. I want to make sure that as my dog tag is communicating back to the cloud or whomever, I'm not that network that it's communicating on can't be hacked, so somebody can find where my dog is and potentially pinch them, which is a big problem in the UK at the moment. Pet dogs being stolen. So there's a whole series of services that the MVNO needs to wrap around that fundamental connectivity. Whether it's POS systems, revenue assurance, fraud detection, security we've just talked about, network level problem solving, quality of service, speed of service, latency, analytical. These are all bolt-ons or value added exercises that the MVNO can provide that business curator or that business partner. I said that MVNOs are perfectly positioned here because if you approach it from a customer point of view, you'll realize that these people now that are providing services are going to become your customers. You'll be one removed from that end consumer to a large extent, but what you're going to be able to offer is agility. You're going to be able to offer flexibility because you can move quicker than MNOs can. You can provide economics that are more aligned to the business curator or the business service provider's need. And ultimately, you can also provide access to the right back-end network because of the commercial, adaptable and flexible deals that you've created with them. So that in itself is a huge value add that you can offer that market that you're now trying to get into. But of course, what we can't do is forget the basics. You've already heard from the GIFGAF presentation that they went into a process of delivering multiple releases potentially per day in order to get the functionality that they needed. That's an example of operational excellence. Operational excellence is always going to be required if you're going to create a profitable MVNO business. So, and as our services are moving digital, so our operational footprint has to be much more digital. We've got to introduce frictionless technology, whether it's things like eSIM to make customers' experience less hassle-free in terms of how they join your network, providing self-service technology so that they can manage themselves and not have to deal with call centers and not have to deal with long email turnaround times. They can serve themselves, whether it be a consumer or even an employee in an enterprise. And leveraging artificial intelligence to produce that service personalization, so it's delivering exactly what the customer wants at exactly the right time. But getting that lowest cost to serve means that also automation is going to become increasingly important. In fact, what you really want is you want your technology stack to be lights out. It's effectively got to be running by itself with the minimum amount of input from your own staff. I mean, that means your staff can focus on customer acquisition because that's the bit that creates real value for you. What you don't want is a massive back office looking after technology that just needs to be handheld all the time. So take the same attitude towards digitalization that you're going to put into your customers' hands and apply it to your own operational footprint and achieve that operational excellence, because that is the place where you can so easily destroy the margins that you've worked so hard to gain at the front end. And again, I go back to operational excellence also includes making sure that your M&O contracts, your wholesale agreements are aligned with the services that you're fundamentally looking to try and support. So, I mean, if I can also give a couple of examples of success, I'll start with Red One. It's an example that we use frequently because they are very successful. And here's an example of a customer, by the way, first postpaid and prepaid MVNO customer in Southeast Asia. But their business is built on a reseller network. Now, what they've done is they've tried to blend physical and digital, because that personal touch of a physical person meeting another person, shaking their hand and doing a deal is still going to be extremely important, except that, historically, that reseller would have a rucksack with about 20,000 SIMs in the back, and as they go around meeting people, shaking hands, they'll be giving them a SIM card and giving them a place on the web where they can register that SIM card. Nowadays, it's going to probably still be a bit of that, but it's also now walking around with a mobile phone that's got a three-dimensional barcode on it, and asking customers to simply scan the barcode in order to register their SIM on their network. So eSIM, frictionless technology, bringing together physical and digital is working really well for Red One. And of course, they've embraced the digital angle by providing decent mobile phone apps that, again, make that customer experience seamless and hassle-free. And they're getting the benefits of that now as they expand from Thailand now into Malaysia, with their existing Philippine and Singapore operations already going full pelt. So the other example I'd like to give is VADSA. VADSA is a Mexican MVNE that's been built on top of the Altan network, and they've just launched their first MVNO, Exis, and that MVNO has decided to go bypass the sort of personal SIM market straight away, and they're partnering with businesses who are looking to do what we've just been talking about, turn products into revenue-generating services. So they're partnering with ADT to provide personal security services, so devices with SIM cards in them that individuals carry around with them, and they can launch panic buttons, etc., if they feel threatened. And Sprint for providing financial services through various mobile devices. So here's an example of a business that's gone straight to the enterprise market as opposed to going directly to the consumer. So they're very much a B to B to X type of play. And again, yes, it's early days for VADSA, but they saw the opportunity, they've seen the value gap, and that's what they're going after. A little plug for our own business. As I said earlier, MDS built its business around the enterprise. Most of our business is with enterprise customers, not B2C. And acknowledging all of the things that we've spoken about today, we've built effectively an MVNO in a box type solution that provides good billing and revenue assurance capability with standard interfaces. It's real time, it's cloud enabled, it has a plethora of self-care capabilities with it, and of course it embeds best practices in the IoT and 5G and MVNO spaces. So to the point about agility, we can get somebody up and running very, very quickly for a very acceptable price point. And the point there is going forward, that customer has the ability to offer that agility then, whether it be through product development or service development, and the ability to then build that product or service. So something that we're working on and quite proud to have got where we've got with that. And as we hit 3 o'clock, I just wanted to end, with a little bit of a light-hearted story. And we've been talking a lot about digital and the way digital can be used to disrupt. Livs is a supermarket chain in Sweden that's addressed a big concern or a big issue that's existed in remote locations where shops used to exist but eventually closed because they were just too expensive, because the people costs associated with them keeping open were just too high. Well, Lifts have now gone in with containers that have been constructed to be like shops, but they're completely operator free. So people go into the shop with a credit card, they go in, they collect the goods they need, they self-scan, they leave, they get billed. But now here's an example, Lifts have reduced the cost to serve through operational excellence and digitalization. So by doing that, they've now been able to offer a great customer experience to customers who previously weren't being served. So it's back to this operational excellence, leveraging digital technology. And of course, we've heard about what Amazon does. Amazon's probably taken it one level further, where you don't even need to self-scan. They just figure out what you've got just based on sensors that are in the shop, and as you walk out the door, they'll charge you. So they've got their own revenue assurance built in. But I think the point's well made. Digital offers so many more opportunities, both on the front end for the actual services or the customers and the services they use, but also for the MVNO in the middle, who's got to provide that agility to those service providers. And again, to close it out, think about your back end as well, adaptability and flexibility in your MNO contracts. So I'd like to thank you for your time. It is just past 3 o'clock, so apologise for slightly overrunning, and I hope to hear a lot of your questions in about 40 minutes' time. Thank you very much.